For joining us on this Tuesday. With us is Michael Cunningham with ARC, or Animal Rescue Corps. It's good to have you on, Michael. Appreciate it.
It's great to be here.
We should say he drove in this morning. Now, ARC originally was based, right, home office out of Virginia, correct?
Our headquarters, or where we receive our mail and everything, is in Washington, D.C.
Oh, D.C.
I live in Virginia.
Okay.
But our facility is here.
In Lebanon.
In Lebanon.
Yeah, it's an emergency facility. That's where you'll shoot out from this location and bring the animals back here, and that's where you were talking about they get the treatment and the evaluations.
Yes. Middle Tennessee is perfectly situated for us to service the entire South.
Yeah.
And whether it's working on natural disasters, hurricanes blowing through, or helping some of these rural areas that don't even have animal control or shelter with some of their animal situations, we can, it's pretty much a one-day drive from anywhere in the South, and that's good for the animals too, that they're not on long transports.
Sure.
And I want to be clear too that the animals that if we're working in Mississippi, for instance, or in Louisiana, and we bring 100 animals into Lebanon, we're not placing those animals here in Tennessee. We are trying to relieve the South of a companion animal overpopulation problem. The northern states have been investing in spay and neuter for about 40 years. And in some cases, they have waiting lists for people who are already pre-approved, who are waiting for the animals to come in to the shelter to be adopted.
Homes that want dogs.
So if we can just move those animals out of the southern states up into the northern states, they just fly out of the shelters and they're in homes right away.
That's so great. I mean, I remember first hearing about that, and it makes sense. Down here, for whatever reason, we have so many dogs, not as enough spaying and neutering. But we're talking Michigan, the Northeast, New York, all these places up there.
Chicago, Grand Rapids,
they get snapped up super quick.
Absolutely.
Let's take a phone call real quick.
Sure.
We got a few of those coming in. Didn't want to wait too much through the break. We have Charlie. Charlie, good morning. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, Nick. Good morning to you. How you doing today?
Good. What's on your mind, my friend?
Well, if Cleveland can get this weather right, we'd be having sunshine.
Yeah.
But anyway, my question is two questions. One is, I've always heard that it is against the law to have Rottweilers as pets in the state of Tennessee, that they're considered a dangerous animal. And two, what can the federal government do to help the organization out to get them more access to equipment to where they have to, get these animals from like Haiti and from other states and everything? Does the federal government help them out in any way?
Okay, good questions. I'm thinking about the law. I'm not sure if you're schooled on Tennessee. I know people that own Rottweilers. So I don't think it's illegal to own a Rottweiler. It just says, I know there are some apartment complexes or homeowners associations that may have certain restrictions on certain breeds of dogs for whatever reason. But to your knowledge, is there a breed that's illegal? Okay.
No, I don't know of any illegal breeds in Tennessee. In fact, you can have exotics in Tennessee as well.
Yeah.
We've done Rottweiler rescues here in Tennessee. Operation Mayday Part 1 a couple of years ago was all Rottweilers, 21 Rottweilers in a person's house.
We should say that, and by the way, I'll have a question for you, but his second question was, everything that you do, you have some very, very generous donors who you're free to mention on the air here, but there's no taxpayer money, there's no federal or state funding that comes your way, is there?
No, there's not. Our services are completely free to law enforcement and communities. We are funded by donations. We have our monthly donors, and then we have a few corporate sponsors like the Bissell Pet Foundation.
They do a wonderful job.
Who help get our boots on the ground in many cases. When we're working under the authority of law enforcement, we can't go to our donors prior because you're working on a criminal case. So it all has to be very confidential, and we can't let anybody know about it until we're actually on the property, and that's when you're going to get my press release.
Yeah, right.
And me calling the news station to have you guys out there to cover us, and you guys do a great job of coverage.
I think all the media here does. We all care about this issue and want to help with that. And
these departments that we're working with, they're already financially tasked. And so we don't charge for our services for our communities or for law enforcement. We're completely free, and we don't receive any government funding at all.
Okay, and what I was going to touch on is with regard to going to these places and rescues. Now, there are the puppy mills and the folks there that are just money hungry, trying to get money and mistreating the animals. And then there are cases sometimes where you have hoarding situations. And you've told me you've witnessed some incredibly just awful situations where the pets and animals are living in just squalor. But so are the people. And oftentimes it's someone who meant well. Talk about that. It gets out of hand. They maybe are older, they're suffering from a mental illness or whatever, they're just overwhelmed. But they're living in the same filth that the animals are. And so in some ways when you go in, you're not only rescuing the animals, but then Adult Protective Services can come in and help these poor individuals who really meant well to begin with. They're not mean, evil people. They just got overwhelmed.
It's something we see quite often. In fact, just a month ago, we were on a hoarding case in West Tennessee, and your wife, Deb, joined us on that one, and Deb and I were going through this house. It's quite dangerous. The urine and feces, as it breaks down, gives off ammonia gas, and generally in hoarding cases, the house is all sealed up. You know, all the drapes are pulled. They don't let people in because what's happening behind that front door is their big secret. We have to have compassion for those people as well. And we still use law enforcement to help us, because what we want to create is a lasting solution. We're not interested in putting a hoarder in jail, because that's not going to help them in any way.
No.
We definitely want to get them some mental health, and if that community has those types of resources available. But on the flip side of that, we want to create a lasting solution. So we'll use law enforcement to get a citation, a judgment against these people, and the judgment would be that they're no longer to have animals. And because hoarders will rehoard and rehoard and rehoard. And each time we would have to go back and establish probable cause. We would have to gain evidence either through a tip of a family member or a neighbor or something like that. But if you can get a judgment against them that they can't have animals anymore, then if they start to hoard again, you don't have to go back and start from scratch. It's a violation of the order, and you can go in and just get the animals. Many times in these communities, it's difficult to find the proper mental health resources for those people, and it's an ongoing problem. I have to focus on the animals. So that's my job, is to focus on the animals.
You're there with law enforcement, and they'll see it as well, and you'll cooperate in any way to help the family there. But then they get Adult Protective Services. If there's not resources in the county, they got to go to the state.
Often we end up on these properties because of a 911 call, or sometimes it's a domestic dispute. Law enforcement knows about these problems in their community. They just haven't had the resources to really address it in a kind and humane way.
Which is why most of the time, I mean, again, they solicit you. You get the calls from law enforcement, from sheriffs, who enlightened sheriffs that know this is the way to go, and there are many of them who contact you across the state.
It's a win-win. You know, the animals win. The sheriff's department isn't taxed. Their budgets aren't taxed to take down these big problems in their community, and the animals are cared for and placed in loving homes eventually.
Let's take a break on that note. When we come back, we've got calls. Ed, Joe, and others. If you're on hold, stay there. We'll get to your calls as we continue our conversation about animal rescues, the plight of animals in the state of Tennessee, and the great organizations like Animal Rescue Corps that really lend a hand. We'll be back with more right after this.